Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of LPG Talks Live. I'm Bridget Perino, and I'm with ANOVA, the Remote Tank Monitoring Solution Company, and also the digital partner of the World LPG Association and Industry Council member. It's been an absolute pleasure to host these sessions, and extra excited to host this special edition of LPG Talks Live today. The WINLPG webinar 2023. It's exciting to have seen all the activity of the WINLPG leaders and national chapters starting up around the world actually this past year. And we do today have a global audience in today's session, and I'm so glad that each of you are able to join us today. Before we kick off, let me just remind you that this webinar is being recorded, and the recording link will be sent out to anyone who's registered via email. Most likely by Monday morning, you'll have that. We do a little editing to make sure those poll results come in there as well for you, and that adds little time. Now, if you've got questions, we'd love to get them. Use your webinar controls at the bottom. If you hover down there, you'll see Q&A, and you can enter a question through that box that will pop up when you click on that. And if you don't see that, use the little 3 dots for more, and you'll see all the other choices up there. We prefer the questions in Q&A so that we can get back to you, and we save them as well if we don't have time to do that, rather than using the chat facility. I'd also like to remind everybody that this is a World LPG Association meeting and is therefore governed by the World LPG Association statutes, specifically the association's antitrust guidelines that prohibit the discussion of commercially sensitive information such as pricing, volumes, market share, etc. So we hope that you'll find this session informative and inspiring today. And I'm delighted to be joined today by the WINLPG Global Manager and Communications Director of the WLPGA, Alison Abbott. Thank you, Alison. Who better than you to set the stage for our WINLPG audience today on this important topic of diversity?
Super. Thank you so much, Bridget. Welcome everybody to this year's Women in LPG. It's part of our important LPG Talks Live series with our trusted partner, ANOVA. This isn't the only Women in LPG webinar we're going to be running this year. We're also going to run a webinar in Spanish later this year for our increasingly growing Spanish Women in LPG community. Other big news for us is that we continue to grow our library of inspirational role models. They're all available on the WLPGA website. And also, we are critically growing our national chapters. We're really proud because this year we launched Women in LPG in Mexico. And next week, Nikki and I will be launching Women in LPG in Morocco. This brings our total national chapters to 11. And these national chapters really help us to do work in the field, because what happens in Morocco is very different to what we may be doing in the US or in other nations. So critical way for us to grow the network. I'm hoping that chapter membership is well represented here today. But if you are in a country where there's no national chapter and you'd like to see this grow, let us know. And you can see the list of chapters on our website. Today's agenda is particularly impressive. Here's what's going to happen in the next hour. We'll shortly hear welcome words from our CEO, James Rockhall, and then a recorded message from the WINLPG Global Chair, Pam Inderjeet, who sends apologies that she can't attend this live stream. After that, we've got a particular treat. We've got Elif Chan Yazgan, our Woman of the Year, who's going to give a sort of a mini keynote on her professional experience. This is someone I really urge you to listen to. She has a really impressive story, and there's a whole host of reasons why Elif Chan is our current Woman of the Year. After that, we have a stellar panel. The theme is 8 years on, things are shifting, the serious business of diversity. 8 years on because it's 8 years since we launched Women in LPG. Ably moderated by my colleague, Michael Kelly, we'll welcome Paula Summers, who's head of Women in Propane, Shannon Watt, CEO of the Canadian Propane Association, Janet Carson, Chief Executive of Gas New Zealand, and Joy Cheyenne, who heads up Women in LPG Nigeria, which is one of our most active national chapters. So really looking forward to a great debate. And then last but not least, we'll hand over to Nikki, co-founder with me of Women in LPG, who's going to present some eye-opening facts and figures to wrap up this hour. So welcome again. We hope you'll enjoy this, and there will be time for questions after the panel. So now, James, may I hand it over to you for your thoughts? Thank you.
Thanks, Alison, and thanks, Bridget. So firstly, good day to everybody, and thank you for taking the time out of your agendas to be with us on this webinar today on women in LPG. I'm not a woman, but I fully support the activities of this network. And I'm not going to take a lot of time because there are a lot of interesting and important women here who want to share their views with you. I'd just like to kick off first by acknowledging, you heard her, Alison, tremendous work that she's done, but also Nikki, who's here, the various WINLPG chairs that we've had over the last 8 years, the ambassadors, the role models, national chapter leaders, and also all the women in LPG members. I think there's about 3,000 or more of you across the world. So thank you for all of the tremendous effort that you've put in over the last few years. And what you've done is you've created a fantastic resource, a network of women across the world who can support each other, who can mentor each other, who can guide each other. And I think this will have a very positive impact on our business going into the future. We included diversity quite specifically in our 3-year plan. Diversity is more than just a buzzword or window dressing. For us, it's a fundamental pillar of any successful business. And in the LPG sector, just like any other industry, embracing diversity, it's not just the right thing to do, but it also makes good business sense. It can bring fresh perspectives. It can enhance our creativity, and we can foster an inclusive environment where everybody can thrive and contribute their kind of unique abilities and talents. And if you look at our industry, we serve something like 3 billion people across the world, and many of them are actually women. But our industry does not reflect this. It's not suitably gender balanced. We've often been described as old and male and stale, and it's not something particularly attractive, and it's not likely to attract new clients, and it's certainly not going to attract new employees to the sector. So this is really something we need to address. Today's webinar gives us the opportunity to look at this, to explore why diversity is critical to our business, to discuss how we can be more inclusive and have a more equitable working environment and workplace. Hopefully we can share experiences, and ultimately out of this we can develop new strategies to promote diversity and inclusion in the sector. I think it's also really important to recognize that diversity goes beyond representation. It's not just about having the numbers in place, but it's also about making sure that we create an environment where every individual in the company, I think whether male or female, feels valued, respected, and empowered. By embracing diversity, by improving opportunities for women in our companies, we can unlock the full potential of our workforce, and that's what it's all about. We can foster innovation, and we can gain a competitive edge in the global marketplace. And with that, Alison, I'll pass it back to you for the rest of the webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Thank you for your very kind words. You mentioned mentorship. I know we have Paula on the panel later, and Women in Propane has an incredible mentorship program that Nikki and I are hoping to look at how we can roll out later this year. What I'd like to do now is just give the floor to the recorded message from our global chair, Pam Inderjeet. Pam's an amazing woman. We're thrilled to have her as our global chair for these 3 years. She's not only the first president of the South African Association, first women president, she's also the first female managing director of Oryx Energies South Africa. And she's quite rightly a former Woman of the Year. So Valerie, may I ask you please just to launch Pam's video? It's just a 3-minute words of welcome, and then I'll pick it up. Thank you, Valerie.
Welcome, and thank you everyone for joining. I'm delighted and honored to be appointed as the Global Chair of WINLPG. Some encouraging progress has been made by the LPG industry in its commitment to diversity and inclusion. So whilst the WINLPG chapter has taken off, we must aim to pick up the pace and set the tone for rapid transformation. There's some visible effort and active participation. This must continue in setting goals to achieve our D&I ambitions. As WINLPG grows from strength to strength, and in my capacity as chair, I rely on us as a collective to guide this network to the next level of success. The next 3 years, in line with the WLPGA Strategic 3-Year Plan, promises to take WINLPG to a new level of worldwide outreach. So let's make this happen. And how are we going to do this? Let's see the value of the global spectrum through Nikki, Alison, and Tamsin, and the wider WINLPG network. This is a dynamic team of women waiting to hear from you, so they're able to share all the activities we're getting on with worldwide. Importantly is let's become the pool of active participation and the voice of this network. Go out there, let's start building the membership towards the WINLPG network. Sharing what we're doing, sharing and publishing with pride the initiatives to promote women, develop young talent, educate and support. Let's use this platform widely to meet, learn and exchange. So I gather throughout this webinar, you are going to participate. There's going to be good interaction and communication. We're going to commit to a membership drive and sharing as the heart of this network. Mark your commitment in the chat box. Alternatively, feel free to interact and comment. So there's lots going on. There's an exciting agenda ahead of you. I'm confident we will get into the discipline of sharing and exchanging through the WINLPG network. I wish you great success for this webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam, for sending that in. Before I hand over from one Woman of the Year to the current Woman of the Year, what I'd like to do is just have a quick poll question, just so that we can get a little bit of understanding of what your feelings are as well. What we're going to ask you, do you feel diversity is given a prominent role within your organization? It's a simple yes or no. So here you go. We'll have a few moments to do that. We've got a second question running at the same time, which is, does your company operate flexible working policy? And again, that's yes or no, or upon request. We're really interested to see how flexible working as well has sort of changed as since COVID, when I think a lot of our working environment has changed. So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to just answer that. We can't vote, so it's very much on the people on the call who will be listening to what you say. And I think that will help us also drive some of the comments that we have in the panel as well. So let's just give it a couple more seconds, because I can't see the flow of it, but I think everyone's...
We've got about 63% of the votes in so far. Just use your webinar controls to vote, and scroll, use this tiny little scroll bar to get to that second question at the bottom. 70%, we're almost there. I think we'll call it in a few minutes, Alison.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I think if we've got 70%, let's call it then, because I'm conscious of time, and I know we want to hear from Elif Chan as well. So, okay, this is cool. This is great. So there's an overwhelming feeling that diversity is given a prominent role. That's very encouraging. Although nearly 10% say not. So, and also similarly, over 60% feel that there's flexible working, but 13% say no. 25% upon request. I think maybe Nikki and I will sort of crunch those figures a little bit and look at that, because that's a lot of food for thought. And I know Nikki has some comments about this after our panel. So let's close that. Thank you for voting. As I'd said before, I'd like to move now from a former Woman of the Year to our current Woman of the Year, Elif Can, who is a supply chain director from Aygaz in Turkey. Elif Can, I'll hand it over to you, and we're really looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
Hello, hi everyone, and thanks Alison for the introduction. I was also very happy to see our selfie last week in Bangladesh on one of the photos here. It was a great coincidence that we met in Bangladesh last week with you. I would like to first of all start with saying that I'm more than honored to be selected, of course, the Woman of the Year this year. I think it is very important award in terms of raising awareness in the industry, not only for women, but especially also for men. And I know what a thorough and serious process Women in LPG has been conducting on this process. So thank you once again. So as Alison suggested, I would just like to give you a short perspective on my ideas around women in our industry and what this award means to me. As James put it also really well, historically LPG has been a very much male-dominant industry, and I have started in this industry when I was like 21 years old. And a striking experience I remember was someone calling me Mr. instead of Miss, although we were physically together, you know, we were seeing each other. It was very interesting. I mean, some people said it's a simple mistake, it could be done, but I thought there was more into it, because simply they were not just being used to seeing women in this industry. Of course, I mean, things have improved since recently, and there is a lot of improvement in this sense, but still, I'm sure you all realize that when we join an event, an industry event, or even just when we scan through the photos, it's very striking. I mean, we seriously lack involvement of women in our industry. Last week, as I said, we were in Dhaka for the LPG conference, and there were maybe only 3 women in the whole room. So there has been growth, but there is still a lot to do in this sense. And I think these awards, like raising awareness and holding these webinars, are very important in relaying these messages and making sure that they are reaching the target. So as a general, I believe the main challenge of women, not only in our industry, but all around the world, I think many of us would agree that is still underrepresentation. It's many studies also evidence this, that women leaders, we face stronger headwinds than men do. And there is unfortunately still a glass ceiling. Of course, again, there has been a great awareness in this sense in the last maybe decade, but we still have a very big agenda to cover, and we are a part of this thing. Coming to our industry, I mean, I'm very proud to see, especially World LPG, doing a lot in this sense. And I think Alison and Nikki and with the whole team, they're doing a magnificent job. And I'm very happy to be part of this job this year, especially, and I would like to continue. I would like to just give you a brief information on my own story. So maybe people could be wondering, you know, my story, because I was selected after a thorough process to be the Woman of LPG this year. Well, I started working in Aygaz, my current company, right after my graduation. And I have always been someone who admires, adores challenges and, you know, developing myself and learning. So I kept on working in different areas of supply chain, commercial roles, shipping, transportation, many roles. And after 10 years, I thought that I should do something different. I should move away from my comfort zone, because I was in a huge comfort zone. I knew the whole business in every perspective. I wanted a new challenge. So there was a new role in business development, which I knew nothing about. I had no idea how to do it, but I wanted to try. So I applied all the, you know, HR, the CEO, etc., and they gave me the chance to experience myself in this new role. So this role, although it was very, very difficult, it's helped me grow not only professionally, but also personally, because I had many challenges. I was doing a job that I didn't know. I had no information about. I was reporting to the CFO, which was a very challenging person to work with. And I had a 2-year-old son at home, which I had just stopped breastfeeding. So he was still mainly dependent on me. And I was trying to learn the business, and I traveled a lot. So in that period, I developed the Bangladesh project with another peer that I have in Bangladesh, which Alison and the World IPGA team met. She's also a very strong woman. So within 3-4 years, we developed this project while I had a lot of challenges back home because I had to travel to Bangladesh like every 15 days, every month, staying 10 days, 15 days, and it has been very challenging. And also I was coming from a different background. So while doing that, while doing physical labor, I also had to continuously develop myself. I was on the field the whole day, coming back to the hotel room, reading literature, etc. So my story had a lot of challenges and a lot of points where I interrogated myself. I said, am I doing the right thing? Because as a woman, I don't know, also as men, I guess, but maybe for a woman, it's more you try to keep a balance between your family life, your career. I mean, I have always been an ambitious person, but when I was in Bangladesh those nights, I used to question myself. I used to say, am I doing the right thing? Am I leaving my family for a long time? Is this the right thing to do? So it was a constant, also psychological process for me. But at the end of it, I would say now that looking back, although it was the most challenging period of my life, it was a big struggle for me, but it made me who I am today. So I'm actually proud of myself, and I say, yes, you did very well because you had the courage to move to another field at a difficult time for you. You didn't delay it. You didn't say, maybe I cannot do it. And just, making that step has made a huge difference in my life, professionally and personally. So I believe as women, we are very well trained at fighting, resisting, not giving up, and making things work. And while doing all these, we also have empathy and we have very strong social skills. So if as women, we are still underrepresented, personally, I believe this is mainly because we are not given enough opportunities and sometimes because we hold ourselves back. I believe we shouldn't do it. And that is why I find these awards and these awareness campaigns very, very important. I believe we should, encourage, especially young women, so that they believe in their potentials. We should encourage them. We should also encourage men, as James said. We should also encourage men to believe in women more and give them more chances, because we are more than fully equipped to do whatever we want to do. We just need more opportunities and we just need more self-confidence. So this is what I'm trying to do also in my professional life, even without a context. I try to support all, especially young women, to believe in their potentials and just give them a nudge, just a small nudge sometimes makes a big difference in a woman's life. So I would like to thank Women in LPG team and World IPGA team for this award and giving me this opportunity to relay all these messages. And today, if I even reached one woman or one man to help them believe in their potential, it's a great achievement for me, because this is how change happens. So I invite all women in our industry to facilitate this change with me and with Women in LPG. Thank you.
Well, I think you've met more than one woman there, Elif Chan, and a huge round of virtual applause. As I said at the beginning, I think there are many reasons why you were our outstanding Woman of the Year, and we met in Bangladesh. It's not an easy geography, so we applaud you, and also we know IGAS very well, and I think they support you as well, and that kind of relationship with the team at IGAS. But it's all down to you, and thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Alison. And everyone who would like to reach out to me for anything, please, do not hesitate. We are here to support each other. Thank you.
And we're hoping next year that we'll be launching Women in LPG in Turkey. It had been delayed.
Definitely.
It's on the cards. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And wishing you well. And we're moving over now to the next part of this webinar. I'm going to hand over to the able hands of my colleague, Michael Kelly, who's going to lead us through a panel. We've got a fantastic lineup of panelists, very excited about this. Michael, thank you, and over to you.
All right, thank you so much, and thank you, Elif Chan. That was a really inspiring opening remarks that you gave. Today, we have, as Allison said, a fantastic panel, and we are focusing on the theme of the panel is 8 years on, things are shifting, the serious business of diversity. And I am joined by Paula Summers, who's the head of Women in Propane in the United States. She's also from the Vision Financial Group. Shannon Watt, who heads up the Canadian Propane Association, and Janet Carson joining us all the way from New Zealand, who's the chief executive of LPG, the LPG Association New Zealand, and Joy Shannon, who I always introduce as being the busiest lady I know, who joins us from Nigeria. So what I want to do, and I want to remind our audience, if you have a question, you can use the little tool here to raise your hand, or you can put a question in the Q&A button, and we promise to get to it before the end of the event. And if we don't, we will try and answer it afterwards. I'm going to ask my panel to give an opening statement or on the following topic, and then we're going to shift into a pure Q&A discussion. So the statement is, why is diversity critical as a best business practice? So we've heard so much about the impact that bringing more women into the working place can have. Why is this critical as a best business practice? And Janet, you win the prize for joining us from the furthest afield. I'm going to let you go first and give us your thoughts on this issue.
Oh, thanks a lot, Michael. I mean, I would say in New Zealand, our situation, our gender imbalance that it is probably very similar to a lot of the other countries represented here today. So women in the energy sector in New Zealand, the broader energy sector, are only 30% of the workforce. And we make up a much smaller percentage of leadership in those organisations. So when we think about drawing the best talent that a country has, and you're drawing that talent from 35% of your population. Now I say 35% because most of the staff we have in the sector here aren't just male, they are white men. So if you look at drawing your workforce from 35% of your population, you are most definitely not getting the potential of the talent that your country has to offer. And that's talent that your companies are missing out on. But ultimately, it's talent and growth that every citizen of your country misses out on as well. Because if your organization is not reflective of the communities it's serving, it's impossible to serve them in the best way they can. So in a nutshell, we've got to reflect that, and we have to draw the best people from the whole talent pool.
Janet, in New Zealand, do you have programs in place to encourage more women into the sector?
Well, it's interesting. We have quite formal programs to encourage women into the technology and engineering field. But as people have said, that's great for the future, but these women are not going to come on stream as part of the employable talent pool for at least another 10 years. And then it's going to take another 10 years to get into leadership positions. When we look at the energy transition and all of the issues that we're facing now, 20 years is too long to wait for that segment of our population to have that influence. So we do not have consistent opportunities for women in the workforce. I would say if we did, our numbers would be a lot more balanced. We're losing a lot of employees to other sectors, telecommunications particularly, who are a lot more progressive in achieving that balance, consulting companies, and IT.
Interesting. Okay, Paul or Shannon, from New Zealand to Canada. Shannon, I saw you nodding in agreement with what Janet was saying. Is there anything you want to add to build on her statements?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a scientist, so I went and looked at the studies, and the studies are pretty clear. when you increase diversity, you get better business results, right? You have a better understanding of your customer, you bring more innovative ideas to the table. But for me, diversity is really this idea of just ensuring everyone's included. That means men as well as women. And so when you bring a diversity lens, you ensure that everybody gets to be at that table and everybody has an opportunity to speak and feel that they are heard. And so I think it's just a best business practice across the board to ensure that everybody's bringing their best selves to the table.
That's excellent. And Shannon, in Canada, do you have programs to try and encourage more women to enter into the LPG segment?
Yeah, same as what Janet's saying. You know, we have a lot of programs in place to encourage women to go into STEM, to encourage young girls to go in the STEM, but it's going to take a while for it to move forward. And although there's been some commitments, especially around ESG, environment, social, and governance, to getting more women at the table, especially in the oil and gas sector, it has been slow. There's progress, but it has been slow. And it's something that needs to continue to ensure that we really do represent the population, as Janet mentioned.
Okay, thank you for your answer. And we hope that you're staying safe in Canada. We understand you're having a wildfire problem at the moment. All right, let's switch over to Nigeria. Joy, what are your thoughts on this, on bringing more women into the LPG segment? I must say that Nigeria, over the last few years, the LPG segment is really starting to grow in a way that will hopefully fulfill the potential that we all know this market has.
I'll just draw from Elif Chan's story. And she said something, she said empathy. There's something that diversity brings when women are at the forefront. She was struggling with a lot of self-doubt. Am I doing the right thing? Is my family suffering because I have a job? So it's important for women to bring that empathy to the forefront of their businesses. Aside the fact that we have a lot of social and religious issues in Nigeria. So you have situations where cannot do certain things because of their religion. So diversity brings all of those conversations to the table in a way that it is heard from the perspective of the person who is going through it. So I think empathy is something that people just play around with, but we don't put enough attention to how it can affect. I mean, look at Elif Chan. What if she said, you know what? I want to go back to my family. I'm not doing this anymore. But if you have someone who would just come and ask you that, aside all the work you're doing, how are you? I think it's very important for the industry.
Okay, thank you for that answer. And we know that Nigeria has a new government. Do you think the new government will try and encourage more women to come into the industry as the industry is on a growth trajectory?
Well, so far as the new government has said, they have said that they would encourage more women to come to the table. Now, it's also interesting that there is a gender bill that has been struggling to pass through the legislature in the past couple of years, because some people believe that it is against their religion or it's against their cultural beliefs for women to have a job. So, I mean, the presidency can only do so much. The entire, whether it's public sector, whether it's the private sector, everybody just needs to rally around and understand that you can only achieve so much with just men. Men and women need to come together. It's never really been a man versus woman situation. It's we all can do this together.
Well put. That's a great way to end your statement. All right, let's shift gears and talk to Paula, who's joining us from the United States, where it's also morning time. Paula, what are your thoughts on why diversity is critical as a best business practice?
Thank you, Michael, and good morning, everyone. I'm an engineer by education, so I also like data. And not only having diversity is the right way to run your business, but it's financially lucrative to do so. McKinsey & Company is one of the leading consulting firms in the world, and they completed a 2022 study last year that stated that companies that have more than 30% women in executive leadership positions financially outperform their competitors. And those numbers increase even more when you have gender and ethnic diversity. So although we all talk about how it's important to have diversity and both ethically and gender based, when you're talking to business owners, they want to see that bottom line data, and the data is a proof.
Yeah, it's a proof point, absolutely. And is there something that you're doing in the United States through Women in Propane, which is a sister organization to the global WINLPG network? Is there something you're doing to try and bring more women into the LPG sector?
Absolutely. So at a national level, we have programs that are offered for both men and women in the industry. And I think it's important to have men as the champions for women, and as they're increasing their executive roles. We have a mentorship program, we have leadership training, we have podcasts, which highlight women business leaders. So we're definitely trying to have bring a lot of awareness, as Joy mentioned earlier.
Thank you so much. All right, let's shift back to New Zealand, because Janet, I know it's late for you. I did want to ask a question that has to do with the way the workplace has changed and what that impact has on bringing more women into the workplace. So since the COVID-19, we've seen a huge shift to remote working. And this can have a benefit for work-life balance. I think probably all of us have experienced that. Do you think this can restrict female career progression? Or do you think this is potentially a benefit for female career progression?
The flexibility, Michael, of the workplace.
Yes.
Post-COVID, I think it's been really good for women in the workforce. I think we've for a long time sought to have more flexibility in our work life that has been possible in the past. So, for example, even working shorter days was quite difficult, even if we look back even 5 years ago. Whereas now, I think an extension of workplace where you work locationally, that flexibility has opened people's minds to all sorts of other flexibility in the workplace as well.
Yeah.
And that is excellent for women.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Shannon. Paula, I saw you agreeing. Is that something you want to add to?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that men like flexibility as well, right? We have men for the first time, probably in their careers, where they're able to have some flexibility, attend sports events for their children, perhaps, and even people without children. We like to have a flexibility as well. Go to a yoga class in the middle of the day. So I think that I agree with Janet that it's positive. The negatives that I see, I think. Mentorship is just so important in the workplace, and it's very difficult to have that mentorship when you're not in person with another executive. So I think as leaders, we need to make sure that we're allowing opportunities for mentorship for our remote and hybrid employees.
Mentorship, that's interesting. Is that something that a network, and this is to everybody, a network like the WINLPG can help with, helping to mentor the younger generation of women coming into the industry? Does anyone want to answer that?
Yeah, I absolutely think it's essential. I see it myself. I'm new to propane, and me moving into this industry in a senior position, I see my network of women saying, "Hey, are there jobs? Can I also be part of this industry? You're there. Why can't I be there?" So they see themselves, or can see themselves, because I'm here. So that mentorship piece. But I'd love to speak on this flexibility piece, because women are more likely to do the flexible hours than men. And I think you have to be careful about policies in the office, because when women are working from home all the time, but you have men coming in more often to do FaceTime, they start developing relationships, that face-to-face time, that then might lead to more opportunities and more promotions. And so being really careful about how we treat our staff who are working remotely, giving them the same opportunities taking time out of your day to actually build that relationship, even though it's virtually, instead of somebody dropping in by your office. And so just noting that it can hamper anybody who's working remotely from having from being more successful if they were in the office, and making policies that include them and give them opportunities.
So maybe a little bit of a double-edged sword. Joy, did you want to add anything to this?
I was going to, well, agree and then share a different perspective. I think that remote work kind of, it compounded the gender inequality issue that was pre-existing, because you find that women had to do twice the work to get the equal pay pre-pandemic. And then you also have instances where businesses equate physical presence to productivity. So just like Shannon said, you're not in the office, they don't think you're doing enough, even though you're not leaving anything undone. So I'd always give an example about a woman who's just had a baby. She probably has to cut time to take care of that child, or even take some time off work totally. But the father of the same child will be seen as, oh, he needs to earn more money to take care of the same child. So I think that the labor that women give in providing childcare is so undervalued that the system kind of supports men and enables them to compete at the expense of women. So that orientation needs to change. We need to start to look at productivity instead of physical presence, and start to build pay structures, compensations, and benefits that look at productivity instead of just measuring physical presence as a whole.
That is a really good point, and it's a great segue into the final question that I had, which has to do with women being often seen as the primary caregivers for families, and how raising a family can often affect a woman's ability to move up the career ladder. So what can we do to better support women or working mothers that find themselves in this situation? Maybe we'll start with you, Janet.
So I'm thinking about, I went to a Young Energy Professionals event recently, and the subject was why we don't have more working in the LPG and gas sector, young people choosing it to come in at the same levels as other sectors. And one young woman just said very simply, "You don't welcome us." And that really made me think. It made me think what an easy fix it could be. To bring them in, we just have to be more welcoming. And then what it would take to genuinely welcome young people into our businesses. And the same could be said, I think, for women. We need to welcome them. We need to support them when they arrive, and we need to promote them.
Excellent, excellent. Next, maybe Paula, would you like to comment on maybe how the industry could support working moms?
Janet, you're absolutely right. You know, for those of us that already have a seat at the table in leadership, we need to advocate for those who don't. And, you know, making sure that, you know, I think here in the US, there's been a shift towards having, you know, paternity leave and having longer leave for women, and their jobs are secure when they come back from that maternity leave. So I think that, you know, we're seeing a shift here in the US that's positive. But, you know, me personally, I took 2 years off when I had my son, and came back and had to kind of just not start all over, but I did have to start from a lower position. And that's just really unacceptable. I mean, you know, my intelligence didn't decrease over those 2 years, it probably increased. So I think just those of us that have been through the situation just need to advocate for those that are coming in.
Excellent point. Joy, do you want to add anything to this debate that you sparked on working moms?
I think that men are able to focus on their jobs fully because the women are taking care of the home. So we need to pay attention to providing support for women so that they can concentrate fully on their jobs without having to, go back a couple of years or months because they're taking care of their families. So whatever support systems that can help a woman concentrate on her job is most welcome.
Thank you, Joy. And Shannon, final comment goes to you on this particular issue, or any other thoughts you have on your mind?
Yeah, I feel passionate about this as a working mom myself. And I think the fact that I am a working mom means that I can bring empathy to my staff who have kids and provide them what they need. And I've been clear that your family and your health come first, and whatever work doesn't get done, we will fix them. But what's interesting in Canada is we recently got subsidized daycare, and we, this past winter, had the highest number of women employed in that, those key years. And so not simple, but subsidized daycare allowed more women to get into the workforce. And so there are policies that can help women and allow them to be successful. The other one that I want to raise is the wage gap. And apparently maternity leave is a big factor, in that wage gap, that loss of income, that loss of bonuses, that loss of an increase in pay over that time off has a real factor. And so, as a community, for us to really encourage men to take paternity leave so that we really equal up the field, right? So that we understand that childcare can be everybody's job, and we're all working together to be working parents.
Wow, all working together to be working parents. I think that's a great place to end. Thank you so much, Janet. Thank you for staying with us. We know it's really late for you. We really appreciate your effort on dialing in this evening. Paula, thank you for joining us. Joy, always a pleasure to see you. And Shannon, always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for joining us. This was a fantastic panel. If we were live and in person, I'd ask the audience to give you a round of applause, but I'll ask for them to give it to you virtually. With that, I am going to hand over to my good colleague and friend, Nikki Brown. She's the Global Community Manager from Women in LPG, and she's going to give us a statement and move us into the next part of this webinar. Thank you, everyone, and thank you to the panel.
Hello, thank you very much, Michael, and thank you so much for your comments on the panel. That was really interesting, and what is most interesting is that I prepared my next part completely not understanding what you would be talking about, but so much of what you've discussed is coming into my sort of facts and figures that are coming through. So we're all singing off the same hymn sheet, but really, really interesting. Thank you so much. Could we start the slides, please? So we're just looking very, very quickly at a précis of the facts and figures in relation to the issues for the LP gas industry. Women are substantially underrepresented in the oil and gas industry, overall at just 20%. This figure is demonstrated across all businesses, with women employees in international companies representing 26%, women in national companies 13%, and equipment companies at 16%. To ensure that we have the necessary talent that's available to develop business, the industry must redouble its efforts to recruit women. This is demonstrated by the fact that 54% of all university graduates in 2022 were female. Externally, the industry is described as male-centric, rigid, outdated in practice and mindset, including its attitude to women. The industry is considered male-dominated, which is a fact, but there is a view that no conscious decision has been made by business leaders to increase or improve gender diversity. Unless companies take a meaningful process towards the recruitment of women, change will not occur. And of the average 22% of women employed, if you look at technical roles, that drops to 15%. There is general diversity bias about leadership attributes, and the feedback refers to the old boys club at the top of organizations. This makes it very difficult for women to build the same relationships as a man. There is a glass ceiling,
People are not always comfortable with you, and you cannot get involved in the same way as a man, which puts your visibility to the senior executives at a disadvantage. We need to challenge the beliefs and assumptions that surround working women. At this time, many job opportunities are not just being offered to women for consideration because men assume that women are unwilling or unable to take on positions because they lack flexibility. If a man leaves work early to go to a son or daughter's football match, he's a good father. If a woman does that, you have some people saying, oh, she can't cope with the commitment of family and working life. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The facts. Only construction has a poorer representation than the oil and gas industry for women and employees. We need to recruit and retain women already employed to bridge the experience gap that is evolving now. Women are often bypassed for field roles because the logistics are just easier to manage for male workers. There is growing resistance from a number of certain educational institutions not to promote career choices with companies associated with fossil fuels. For instance, in the UK, Sheffield University and some parts of Cambridge University will not allow these types of companies to participate in any recruitment events for graduates. This is an industry where 80% of the consumers are women. As if to emphasize the industry's lack of gender balance, the WINLPG, the voice of the industry, has zero representation of women on its board in 2023. Women are like oxygen, less and less as you go up. And this is because most of the candidates that are being considered for senior promotion come through limited career paths. And some companies reported that women are completely absent from their company's high potential list. Gender diverse companies perform 25% better financially than others. I don't need to say anything really, that speaks for itself. And that statistic comes from the Global Parity Report of 2023. It's been shown that balanced diversity helps teams focus on facts, process these facts more carefully, and ultimately create more ideas and innovation. We are losing out on new talent, as good DEI credentials are one of the top 3 must-haves for graduates and young millennials when choosing new employers. Next slide, please. So what steps? The most important key success factor is the involvement of this current senior leadership. Companies have to adopt an inclusive, gender-neutral approach to advancement and recruitment. We need to promote STEM programs for young girls and women with incentives, scholarships, and internships. We need to work with educational institutions to demonstrate the industry's evolving environmental credentials. We need to establish clear recruiting targets and develop KPIs for attracting and retaining women. We need WINLPG to continue to develop visible female role models and industry ambassadors. We must insist on the development of separate and sufficient facilities and accommodation for women working in technical or field roles. And we need to make policies that support gender balance, such as bias awareness training, and make it mandatory for all employees, including the board and all senior executives. And it's essential that we broaden the criteria for inclusion on the high potential candidate selection lists. So last slide, please. So in conclusion, the most important key success factor is the demonstration of commitment to gender balance from senior leadership. But visible sponsorship of female employees by a male leader is also highly important, as men place a greater priority on gender diversity when they see that the company's leadership supports it. We need role model visibility and we need support from ambassadors. And if you've reached the top, it is your responsibility to send the elevator down to help others. We must change the language and style of recruitment and focus on making it less male-centric and develop a better balance between the hard and soft traits of desired attributes. And finally, support the WINLPG network, as this is your voice for gender balance within our industry. So to finish, we would like to also launch the WINLPG 2023 awards. The Woman of the Year and Young Woman of the Year awards are now open. All the details are available online, and we urge you to nominate yourselves or a colleague for these two exceptional awards. You'll have heard from Elefkan how important it is to have role models, and these are the type of parameters where we can really show what women can do. But this year, we are really excited to be launching a new, very important award. This is the Field and Technical Groundbreaker Award. This award will recognise women who work in the field or in technical roles where they have overcome the specific challenges of working in particular sectors and can demonstrate working within an environment where women are significantly underrepresented. All the application forms are now online, and you have until the 29th of September to submit your applications. Thank you very much for listening, and now over to Bridget.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Much appreciated. Okay. Actually, thank you to everybody, to James, Alison, Pam, Elif-Chan, Michael, Janet, Paula, Joy, and Shannon. What a lineup today. The energy you've all given us, it's palpable. I hope everyone on the call today can feel it as well. I think the session is so timely, so inspiring. Believe in yourself, show empathy, men and women working together, be an advocate, seek a new balance and diversity, so relevant for our future. We heard so much from the entire group today, and thank you so much for sharing. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to take a quick look forward to LPG Week 2023. It's convening once again for a week of networking, the latest innovations in LPG, and that special sense of community of being involved, of being a part of our future, of the industry, whether you attend in person or virtually. As some of you may know, the event this year has new programs. It also features the Liquid Gas Europe Congress event, all with one registration, which is open, by the way. You can register now for LPG Week in Rome. It promises to be the biggest LPG Week event ever. I saw in my email this morning that exhibit space is almost sold out, so there's your indicator. So if you plan on going to Rome, book your seat and get your hotel room soon. That's my advice to anyone thinking about going. And if that's not an option for you, do consider the virtual attendance option. So here's a sneak peek, a quick sneak peek before we wrap up of what you can expect from LPG Week 2023.
You're muted, Bridget.
Thank you so much, James. I wanted to thank all the LPG Week sponsors. The event doesn't happen without the sponsorship of all the companies that that participated with sponsor. So please do visit lpgweek.com. Easy to remember, lpgweek.com, and make your way to Rome next year, or sorry, this year. In person, amazing, but keep in mind the event is also affordable, virtual, and also global. So I want to thank again to everyone, to our experts. Thank you to our audience. I hope you're all inspired to be agents of change and diversity within our industry. And please do take a moment to answer our quick survey. When you leave, your feedback helps us deliver an array of pertinent, timely content. So thank you all, and looking forward to seeing you at the next LPG Talks Live episode. Thank you and goodbye, everybody. Take care.